Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our SKAVEN series. Where last we left off, we discussed the SKAVEN's origins and some key points in SKAVEN history. The little which is known, obviously. But before we move on, we'll need to step back just for a bit. We are aware that after Skavenblight was almost destroyed, the god of the Skaven, the Horned Rat, commanded the Skaven to spread across the world. This would eventually become known as the Great Migration. While many Skaven clans spread throughout the lands of the Old World and the Southlands, many others were a tad more adventurous. They travelled far and wide, some travelling to the Far East lands, eventually known as Nippon, Cathay and Ind, while others managed to travel under the Great Seas themselves and find themselves in the far west in the lands of Lustria. Obviously, since they were so far from Skavenblight, communication back to the capital, if any, was incredibly difficult. This led many of the Skaven hierarchy believing that these clans may have been defeated by the horrors that lay in wait for them, or perhaps even destroyed after failing a test by the Horned Rat himself. These clans were considered lost, and in typical Skaven fashion, they were forgotten, as if they had never existed. Still, the Skaven were resilient, and many clans were sent out in their stead. Funnily enough, the Skaven went largely unnoticed by the races of the surface world, save for a few incidents, of course. But anyone who had knowledge of the Ratmen quickly disappeared before tales of an empire of human-sized rats could spread. The Skaven enjoyed an anonymity which was rarely seen in the world. However, they were not the only race which dwelt underground. The Dawi, the Dwarves, and the Greenskins have taken to constructing holds and taking over holds respectively, which would be largely unknown to those who lived above the ground. The Skaven knew both the Dwarfs and the Greenskins could potentially hinder their advancements. More so the Dwarves, due to their advanced technology and stronger armaments. Obviously, the Dwarves were the biggest target, so the Skaven launched numerous offensives on the various Karaks of Karak and Kor. The Dwarves, being one of the Warhammer world's most resilient races, fought back. But the Skaven have numbers unlike any other. It would not be long until various Skaven clans found themselves entrenched within these Karaks, slowly killing off the Dwarves and taking over their holds. Many holds fell and were twisted to better serve the Skaven. Many Dawi forces would be dispatched to reclaim the lost holds, and some would succeed but find themselves under the eye of the Vermintide once again within just a few short days. The same would happen to the Greenskins, who not only had dug out their own kingdoms within the mountains, but had also managed to take some of the holds from the Dawi. But any in the path of the Great Ascendancy must be destroyed, lest the Horned Rat take more of a direct control over his children. Some holds and fortresses were easier to conquer, and for a short period of time, the Skaven had a massive advantage. You see, before the Great Migration began, the Skaven loosely united as they were, tried to create a great tunneling machine. This machine would have created tunnel networks across the entire world, and would have allowed the Skaven to spread far easier. But unfortunately the machine failed. However, with the failure came some sort of success. For when the machine exploded in typical Skaven fashion, it sent shockwaves across the old world. Many dwarf carracks were badly damaged. Many of these carracks had breaches within the walls, some deep inside the fortress cities. The Dawi were now vulnerable, whether they knew it or not. And now the assaulting Skaven had various ways to breach the dwarven carracks. Skaven assassins could now sneak in and take out important targets. Food and water supplies can be poisoned. And if all else failed, the Vermintide could be released upon them, where hundreds, if not thousands, of ratmen could charge out of these new tunnels, catching the Dawi unaware and ready to be slaughtered. It is impossible to hold back the Skaven. And while the dwarves may admit they may have lost a hold or two, the gravity of the situation is much larger. Almost every carrack has been under attack by the Skaven, and only the Skaven know just how many of their ilk lay in wait. Skaven, Greenskin and Dawi would be locked in a constant state of war for the Great Underground, leaving the surface world unaware of the almost extinction levels of warfare. It looked like none could destroy the Skaven or halt them in their path of destruction, except maybe the Skaven themselves. While the Skaven had the dwarves and the greenskins to fight, there has been no need for infighting. Skavendom was united. United being used very loosely, of course. And it was at this time that some of the Skaven clans that had seemingly been lost through time as they travelled across the vast reaches of the world had started to make their reappearance to their kin. Some would return with riches, others with weapons, and some returned completely changed. So drastically different from their kin due to harsh conditions and desperate times. Clan Pestilence being the perfect example of this. Now just a quick note, I will be covering this Skaven clan and its history in a future video, but certain points of the lore for this clan is quite important to this video. Clan Pestilence were one of the many Skaven clans thought to be lost through the passage of time. Originally, when the Great Migration began, Clan Pestilence had travelled south to the mystical lands of Araby. And in time, they travelled more and more to the south. The further away from Skavenblight, the less contact they made with the capital. Eventually, there was no communication whatsoever, which led many of their fellow kin to think they had simply just died out. But this was actually not the case. While they had originally tried to settle in Araby, or so it was thought, they eventually came across an immensely sized tunnel which led them west. By luck, or maybe by the will of the Horned Rat himself, Clan Pestilence eventually found themselves in the mysterious lands of Lustria, where the land was old and mostly untouched, ripe for the taking. Massive temple cities lay waiting to be sacked. Herbs and plants unseen by any of the old world. New toxins, new playthings. And the local lizardmen, just waiting to be experimented on by the SKAVEN. Surely, this was a paradise to behold. Unfortunately for the SKAVEN, nothing is ever simple. The lizardmen proved to be harder foes than were initially thought. For the lizards and their great beasts were powerful, bashing into SKAVEN skulls with little trouble. Their scaled bodies repelled the badly forged SKAVEN weaponry. The SKAVEN, to the lizardmen, had become what their dead were to them: food. Now, while it was bad enough that they were losing most of their skirmishers, another variable came into effect. Lustria was a new land to them. Many diseases existed here that, originally, not even the SKAVEN of Clan Pestilence could even dream of. Disease ran rampant across the camps of Clan Pestilence, and soon enough, they started to die out in Lustria. Coupled together with the lizardmen now actively hunting them, they faced extinction. Bruised, diseased, and hungry, the last remnants of Clan Pestilence, in their desperation, turned to their patron for help. They sacrificed those that they could capture in the name of the Horned Rat, and eventually begun to worship the very diseases placed upon them. For eventually they began to believe that these diseases were placed upon them as gifts or even tests from their Dark Father. They embraced their newfound devotion, and it would seem that the Horned Rat himself was indeed pleased. The SKAVEN of Clan Pestilence eventually began to turn. The diseases, while still killing the lesser rats, embraced the stronger ones. They rotted, yes, but they would not die. Instead, they would spread the plagues to their enemies, harnessed as weapons of war. Clan Pestilence was now forever changed, and by the will of the Horned Rat, they would spread like a cancer throughout Lustria. With their newfound strength, Clan Pestilence retaliated against the lizardmen, and now even began to repel them. SKAVEN fortresses were constructed on the various temple cities. The cities above were sacked, and its populace sacrificed in the name of the Horned Rat. Naturally, the rise of this venomous horde would cause great concern to the lizardmen of Lustria, as surely these rat things were not part of the great plan. And so a large army, comprising of various temple cities, were mustered in order to repel and hopefully exterminate the Ratmen. The leaders of Clan Pestilence, rotten as they may be, were in no way stupid. They knew that the lizardmen's armies would destroy them eventually, and they knew that Lustria was not safe for the time being. But for now, they had what they wanted, and gained much knowledge from these lands. So now, after so many years, it was time to return to Skavenblight. Desperately, the clan fought their way to the shores of Lustria, building some temporary holds, and prepared to build ships in order to escape the Jungle Nation. All while holding back the seemingly endless brute force of the Lizardmen. But by the will of the Horned Rat, Clan Pestilence managed to create a fleet big enough to transport most of them away. The Skaven of Clan Pestilence were returning to Skavenblight. Many Skaven were slaughtered on their retreat. Some managed to escape the hands of the Lizardmen, and even sought to settle in various parts of Lustria. The Skaven, both those who retreated and those who stayed, would thrive for many years to come. Why the Lizardmen did not pursue the fleeing Skaven is unknown. But surely they couldn't have believed that they had killed every last rat, or that the rat would not return in force. But as usual, the judgment of the Lizardmen was wrong, and they would face the rats again in the future. Clan Pestilence eventually found their way back to Skavenblight, sending emissaries to the clans situated there. But, as expected, they were not sent by friendly means. Clan Pestilence demanded their ruler be given a place upon the Council of 13. Obviously, the other clans refused their demands, for Clan Pestilence had been gone and forgotten. In their eyes, they only see walking bodies of plagues, no better than undead. One should learn never to refuse Clan Pestilence, however, for swiftly they retaliated, attacking various Skaven holds with their newfound mastery of chemical and biological warfare. Hundreds, if not thousands of Skaven died, and Clan Pestilence would not stop until their oh-so-simple request was granted. All across the land, various clans fought against Clan Pestilence, some beaten, some exterminated, and some even convinced to join them. A full-scale civil war was once again plaguing all of Skavendom, a war that would last centuries. Surely, if the Skaven had united fully long ago, they would have overrun the world by now. But such is the nature of the Skaven, to work against each other, to feed on each other, and to destroy each other before the other got too strong. Many years passed, and soon enough the whole of Skavendom was split between two factions. Many other Skaven clans were outright eliminated. No matter how hard the Under-Empire fought, Clan Pestilence would counter, their vile poisons being unleashed secretly onto the holds of the other clans, decimating them within hours, leaving them barren, uninhabitable. But still, the Under-Empire fought on, hoping to repel the invaders. One clan, Clan Murkit in fact, defied Clan Pestilence's advances at every possible chance they had. That is until the masters of biological warfare unleashed a new wave of toxins, so powerful that almost the whole clan was destroyed within just a few short hours. Eventually, the fighting came to multiple stalemates. None could gain without losing. For now, all of Skavendom was wholly focused on the civil war. The strength of the Council of 13 was now waning, and many other minor Skaven clans took advantage of the situation, rebelling for their own personal gains. Such is their nature. The war seemed unending, and for a moment it would seem that Clan Pestilence would take over Skavenblight, and in turn all of Skavendom as its sole rulers, were it not for salvation from the east. It was around this time that Clan Eshin returned. Following their departure during the Great Migration, Clan Eshin found themselves travelling to the Far East. There they settled, and there they learnt. For the nations of the Far East were secretive. Many do not know of them, or have simply heard common folk tales. But in the Far East, in the lands of Cathay, Ind, and Nippon, dwelt powerful assassins. Men who walked in the shadows, undetected, like spirits bound to this realm. Clan Eshin watched these men from afar, and they not only learnt, but mastered the craft. This was a Skaven clan dedicated to the art of spying and assassination. And now they had returned to Skavenblight. Unlike Clan Pestilence, Clan Eshin did not demand a place among the Council of 13. No, in a shocking revelation, they were loyal to the Council. They were loyal to Skavenblight. They wished to serve the Horned Rat, and thus crush the rebellions, so that Skavendom may once again be united, and carry out the will of their dark god. Clan Eshin dispatched many of the hierarchy of Clan Pestilence, taking their heads to the Council of 13. The tides of war were changing, and the remaining leaders of Clan Pestilence knew this. Determined not to be destroyed and eventually forgotten, they called for parley. Interestingly enough, the Council of 13, who at this point had an advantage against the rebels, thanks to the masterful skills of Clan Eshin, agreed to the parley. And thus, Plague Lord Nurglich of Clan Pestilence was invited into Skavenblight to discuss possible terms of surrender and potentially end this civil war, which has once again almost destroyed the Skaven. Clan Pestilence presented their tributes to the Council, and once again demanded a place upon the Council. But the Council of 13 would not budge. They would accept terms of surrender and demand that the Plague Lord be put to death for his crimes against Skaven kind. Once again, the Council of 13 misjudged the craftiness of Clan Pestilence. To think anyone in a position of power of this clan would go unprepared anywhere is to risk death itself. Nurglich would chuckle and reveal a vial filled with the Yellow Skull fever. One of the most, if not the most potent disease that Clan Pestilence would use as biological weapons of war. Without skipping a beat, he would threaten that if anyone were to touch him, or any more threats were made against him, then the vial would be shattered in the very heart of Skavenblight itself, effectively dooming their whole race. The Council, knowing full well the Plague Lord was not joking, reluctantly agreed. The crimes of Clan Pestilence were pardoned, and they were once again allowed to inhabit Skavenblight. Lord Nurglich was finally able to lay claim for a position in the Council of 13. Lord Nurglich was to duel Lord Vask in single combat. Should he win and kill Vask, then Clan Pestilence would be represented as a ruling Skaven clan. Though the fight was close, Vask did not anticipate the poisonous bites of Nurglich, which over the years had festered to become extremely lethal. Vask fell. The Civil War was over. Skavendom would once again be united, for the time being at least. And now the Skaven would set their sights on the world above. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our lore video. I know this was a little shorter than the one 2 weeks ago, but it's a quite pivotal moment in Skaven history. Plus, it's the re-emergence of Clan Eshen and Clan Pestilence, two of the most important Skaven clans in Skaven history. But with that, if you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you all again very, very soon.